Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
Maria Montessori stands as a towering figure in the history of education. Though her initial forays were rooted firmly in the field of medicine, her journey began with a pioneering spirit, defying societal expectations to become one of Italy's first female physicians. This foundational training in scientific observation and rigorous methodology profoundly shaped her later educational innovations. Her early career focused on a segment of the population then largely overlooked: children with developmental delays. Montessori's medical studies at the University of Rome exposed her to the stark realities of institutional care for individuals with mental and developmental challenges. Following her graduation in 1896, she served as a surgical assistant and later volunteered at the psychiatric clinic of the University of Rome. This experience proved pivotal, offering her direct exposure to the conditions and treatment of children then labeled as deficient. The prevailing attitude toward these children was one of neglect, with scant attention paid to their educational or developmental potential. They were often relegated to asylums, receiving minimal stimulation or specialized care. The problem Montessori confronted was the absence of effective educational strategies tailored to the specific needs of children with intellectual disabilities. Existing pedagogical approaches were designed for typically developing children and proved inadequate for those requiring a more individualized and sensory-rich learning environment. She recognized a critical disconnect between the children's inherent capacity for learning and the impoverished environments in which they were placed. This realization ignited a passion within her to seek alternative methods that could unlock their potential. Her initial response involved a deep dive into the work of two pioneering figures in special education, Jean Itard and Edouard Séguin. Itard, a French physician, had gained renown for his work with Victor, the wild boy of Auvergne, demonstrating the possibility of educating a child presumed to be incapable of learning. Séguin, a student of Itard, further developed these methods, emphasizing sensory training and individualized instruction for children with intellectual disabilities. Séguin's work, particularly his book Idiocy and its treatment by the physiological method, became a cornerstone of Montessori's early approach. Montessori adopted and adapted Itard and Séguin's techniques, meticulously observing the children's responses to specific exercises and materials. She recognized the power of sensory stimulation in engaging their attention and facilitating learning. She began experimenting with various manipulative materials, carefully designed to isolate specific sensory experiences, such as tactile discrimination, visual recognition, and auditory perception. These materials were intended to provide a structured pathway for the children to develop their cognitive abilities through hands-on exploration. A tangible example of her early success lies in her work at the Orphanage School in Rome, which she directed from 1899 to 1901. Here, she implemented her adapted versions of Itard and Séguin's methods with a group of children diagnosed with varying degrees of intellectual disability. The results were remarkable. Through systematic sensory training and individualized instruction, the children demonstrated significant improvements in their cognitive and practical skills. Most impressively, several of these children were able to successfully pass the state examinations designed for typically developing children. This achievement challenged the prevailing assumptions about the limitations of children with intellectual disabilities and underscored the effectiveness of Montessori's approach compared to the standard educational practices of the time. This achievement was far from a matter of chance. It was a direct result of Montessori's meticulous observation, her scientific approach to education, and her unwavering belief in the inherent potential of every child. She carefully documented the children's progress, analyzing their responses to different materials and adapting her methods accordingly. Her medical background provided her with a unique perspective, allowing her to view education through the lens of scientific inquiry. The success at the Orphanage School provided powerful validation for Montessori's ideas and fueled her desire to further refine her methods. It demonstrated that even children facing significant developmental challenges could achieve remarkable progress when provided with the appropriate learning environment and individualized support. This experience laid the groundwork for her later work with typically developing children, leading to the development of her revolutionary educational philosophy. Her initial work with children with developmental delays served as a laboratory, a testing ground for her ideas about the nature of learning and the power of sensory-based education. The triumph of her students on the state examinations served as a compelling argument for the transformative potential of her approach. Montessori's early work was deeply influenced by Séguin's emphasis on sensory education. Séguin believed that intellectual development was intimately linked to sensory experiences, and he designed a range of materials to stimulate and refine the senses. Montessori adopted this principle, creating her own versions of Séguin's materials and adapting them to the specific needs of her students. Séguin's influence is evident in Montessori's focus on providing children with hands-on experiences that engage their senses and promote active learning. Itard's work with Victor demonstrated the potential for education to transform even the most seemingly hopeless cases. This instilled in Montessori a deep sense of optimism and a belief in the inherent capacity of every child to learn and grow. Itard's emphasis on individualized instruction and careful observation also resonated with Montessori's scientific approach to education, building upon her foundational medical training and her experiences at the psychiatric clinic. Maria Montessori embarked on a path that would forever alter the landscape of early childhood education. Her initial forays into pedagogy were deeply rooted in a scientific curiosity, a desire to understand the underlying mechanisms of learning, and a profound empathy for children facing developmental challenges. It was during this period that she began to synthesize the insights of earlier pioneers, notably Jean Itard and Edouard Séguin, adapting their methods to create a uniquely effective approach. Montessori's work with children deemed deficient provided invaluable insights into the nature of learning itself. She observed that these children, when provided with the appropriate materials and a supportive environment, exhibited a remarkable capacity for concentration, self-directed learning, and intellectual growth. This realization challenged prevailing assumptions about the limitations of these children and fueled her conviction that every child, regardless of their perceived abilities, possessed an innate potential for development. The methods of Itard and Séguin served as crucial building blocks for Montessori's own pedagogical innovations. Jean Itard's groundbreaking work with Victor, the wild child of Auvergne, demonstrated the transformative power of individualized education and sensory stimulation. Itard meticulously documented his efforts to socialize and educate Victor, employing a range of techniques designed to awaken his senses and develop his cognitive abilities. While Itard's efforts met with limited success, his meticulous observations and innovative methods inspired future educators, including Montessori. Edouard Séguin, a student of Itard, further developed his mentor's ideas, focusing specifically on the education of children with intellectual disabilities. Séguin emphasized the importance of sensory training, believing that intellectual development was inextricably linked to sensory experiences. He designed a series of materials, such as geometric forms and tactile boards, to stimulate the senses and promote cognitive growth. Séguin's work had a profound influence on Montessori, who adopted and adapted many of his materials and techniques. Montessori's genius lay in her ability to synthesize the insights of Itard and Séguin, combining their emphasis on individualized instruction and sensory training with her own scientific observations and pedagogical innovations. She recognized that the key to unlocking a child's potential was to create an environment that fostered independence, self-directed learning, and a love of discovery. In 1907, Montessori was given the opportunity to put her ideas into practice when she was asked to open a school in the San Lorenzo district of Rome, a poverty-stricken area plagued by crime and neglect. This school, known as the Casa dei Bambini, or Children's House, would become the proving ground for her educational method. The specific problem she addressed was the absence of suitable educational environments for poor, typically developing children in this deprived area. The Casa dei Bambini was designed to be a prepared environment, a space that was carefully organized and equipped with materials designed to engage children's senses and promote self-directed learning. Montessori observed that children in this environment exhibited a remarkable capacity for concentration and self-discipline, often working independently for extended periods of time. One of the key features of the Montessori method is the use of specialized materials designed to isolate specific concepts and skills. These materials, such as the pin tower, the brown stair, and the sandpaper letters, are carefully graded in difficulty and designed to be self-correcting, allowing children to learn through trial and error. The pink tower, for example, consists of 10 pink cubes of varying sizes. The child is invited to stack the cubes in order of size, creating a tower. This activity helps the child to develop their visual discrimination skills and their understanding of size and order. The brown stair, similar in design to the pink tower, consists of 10 brown prisms of varying thicknesses. This material helps the child to develop their tactile discrimination skills and their understanding of thickness and volume. The sandpaper letters are wooden boards with letters of the alphabet covered in sandpaper. The child traces the letters with their fingers, learning the shapes and sounds of the letters through tactile and kinesthetic experiences. Montessori meticulously documented the progress of the children in the Casa dei Bambini, observing their spontaneous concentration, their self-directed learning, and their rapid acquisition of skills in reading, writing, and arithmetic. She noted that the children were able to learn at their own pace, mastering concepts when they were developmentally ready. Her medical and scientific training profoundly shaped her approach to education, emphasizing observation and experimentation. She meticulously observed children's behavior, documenting their responses to different materials and activities. She used this data to refine her teaching methods and to develop new materials that would better meet the needs of her students. This systematic approach, grounded in empirical observation, distinguished her work from traditional educational practices. The success of the Corso dei Bambini quickly gained attention, attracting educators and observers from around the world. Montessori's methods were praised for their effectiveness in fostering independence, self-discipline, and a love of learning in young children. Her work challenged traditional educational practices, which often emphasized rote memorization and teacher-directed instruction. Anna Macaroni, an early follower of Montessori, played a crucial role in disseminating her methods. Macaroni, impressed by Montessori's work, dedicated herself to implementing the Montessori method in other schools, contributing significantly to its early spread. The materials that Montessori designed continue to be widely used globally. The pink tower, the brown stair, and the sandpaper letters, among others, remain staples of Montessori classrooms, demonstrating the enduring value of her insights into child development and learning. These materials provide children with concrete, hands-on experiences that foster sensory awareness, cognitive skills, and a love of learning. Following the initial successes in Rome, Montessori's educational approach garnered international attention, sparking a movement that would reach across continents. Educators and reformers seeking alternatives to traditional, rigid schooling systems found in Montessori's method a refreshing emphasis on child-led learning and individualized development. The problem addressed was the perceived need for alternative educational models that fostered independence, creativity, and a love of learning. Her solution was a dissemination of her method through training courses, publications, and the establishment of Montessori societies. The spread of the Montessori method was facilitated by several key factors. Montessori herself was a charismatic and persuasive advocate for her ideas, traveling extensively to lecture and conduct training courses. These courses, often intensive and hands-on, equipped teachers with the knowledge and skills needed to implement the Montessori method in their own classrooms. Her publications, including the Montessori Method, translated into numerous languages, further disseminated her ideas to a global audience. Europe was among the first regions to embrace the Montessori method outside of Italy. Montessori schools began to emerge in countries such as England, Spain, and the Netherlands, often founded by educators who had attended her training courses or been inspired by her writings. These schools provided a practical demonstration of the method's effectiveness, attracting further interest and support. Tangible examples include the founding of the Montessori Educational Association in the U.S. and her lecturing tours in England. The Montessori method gained traction among progressive educators who were already advocating for child-centered approaches to learning. Individuals such as Edmund Holmes, a prominent educational reformer, championed Montessori's ideas, helping to establish a network of Montessori schools across the country. The English Montessori Society, founded in 1911, played a crucial role in promoting the method and providing support to teachers and schools. The United States also witnessed a surge of interest in the Montessori method during the early 20th century. Montessori's ideas resonated with American educators who were seeking to reform the country's public school system, which they viewed as overly rigid and focused on rote memorization. Alexander Graham Bell and his wife, Mabel, were instrumental in introducing the Montessori method to the United States. After observing Montessori's work in Italy, they became enthusiastic supporters, establishing the first Montessori school in the United States at their Washington, D.C. home in 1911. The Bells also founded the Montessori American Committee, an organization dedicated to promoting the method and supporting Montessori schools across the country. However, the Montessori movement in the United States faced challenges. The method was met with skepticism from some educators who questioned its scientific validity and its applicability to diverse cultural contexts. One prominent critic was William Hurd Kilpatrick, a professor at Teachers College, Columbia University, who argued that the Montessori method was overly structured and did adequately promote creativity or critical thinking. Kilpatrick's critique, delivered in a widely read pamphlet titled The Montessori System Examined, contributed to a decline in the popularity of the method in the United States during the 1920s and 1930s. Beyond Europe and the United States, the Montessori method spread to other parts of the world, including India, Japan, and South America. In each of these regions, the method was adapted to suit local cultural contexts and educational needs. In India, Montessori's ideas were embraced by educators who saw in her method a way to promote self-reliance and independence among children. Maria Montessori herself traveled to India in 1939, where she conducted training courses and worked to establish Montessori schools. Her work in India had a lasting impact, and the Montessori method continues to be widely practiced in the country today. The international spread of the Montessori method was not without its controversies and criticisms. One recurring debate centered on the scientific validity of Montessori's claims about child development and learning. Some critics argued that her ideas were based on anecdotal evidence rather than rigorous scientific research. Others questioned the adaptability of her method to diverse cultures, suggesting that it was primarily suited to middle-class European or American children. The outbreak of World War I had a significant impact on the Montessori movement. The war disrupted international travel and communication, making it difficult for Montessori to conduct training courses and promote her ideas. The war also diverted attention and resources away from education as countries focused on military efforts. Despite these challenges, the Montessori movement persevered. After the war, Montessori resumed her travels and continued to advocate for her method. She also established the association Montessori International, an organization dedicated to preserving the integrity of the Montessori method and supporting Montessori schools around the world. The interwar period saw a resurgence of interest in the Montessori method as educators sought new approaches to address the challenges of a rapidly changing world. However, the outbreak of World War II once again disrupted the movement, leading to the closure of many Montessori schools and the displacement of teachers and students. The Second World War created considerable obstacles for the Montessori movement. The global conflict disrupted international travel and communication, hindering the establishment and maintenance of Montessori schools worldwide. Additionally, the war diverted resources and attention away from educational initiatives as nations prioritized military efforts. The problem addressed was the perceived need for alternative educational models that fostered independence, creativity, and a love of learning. Her solution was the dissemination of her method through training courses, publications, and the establishment of Montessori societies. Despite these setbacks, the Montessori movement demonstrated resilience, adapting to the challenges posed by the war and continuing to advocate for its educational principles. Many Montessori educators found ways to maintain their schools and teaching practices, even in the face of adversity. The Montessori Educational Association, founded in the United States, served as a crucial support system for Montessori schools during this period. It provided resources, guidance, and a sense of community for educators who were committed to preserving the Montessori method. The association played a key role in ensuring that the Montessori movement would survive the war and continue to thrive in the post-war era. The association, Montessori International, also worked to support Montessori educators in schools around the world. It facilitated communication and collaboration among Montessori practitioners, helping them to share ideas and best practices. The association also played a vital role in promoting the Montessori method to a wider audience, advocating for its adoption in schools and educational institutions. The Montessori method's emphasis on self-directed learning, hands-on activities, and individualized instruction resonated with educators who were seeking to create more engaging and effective learning environments for children. Its focus on fostering independence, creativity, and a love of learning aligned with the growing recognition of the importance of these qualities in preparing children for success in a rapidly changing world. The direct influence on Montessori stemmed from her earlier successes in Rome, where she developed and refined her educational approach. These initial achievements provided a foundation for her later work and inspired her to share her method with the world. The direct influence on others is evident in the countless educators and child psychologists who were either inspired or challenged by her work. Figures such as William Kilpatrick engaged with Montessori's ideas, contributing to a broader dialogue about educational theory and practice. Today, Montessori schools remain popular around the globe, a testament to the enduring appeal of her educational philosophy. The method has also influenced other educational approaches, such as constructivism and inquiry-based learning. The Montessori method continues to evolve and adapt to meet the needs of 21st century learners, while remaining true to its core principles of child-centered learning and individualized development. Montessori's initial triumphs in Rome, where she meticulously crafted her educational strategy, served as a catalyst for her subsequent endeavors, motivating her to disseminate her methodology across the globe. These early accomplishments established a firm basis for her later pursuits and ignited a desire to share her insights with a wider audience. The impact on others is visible in the multitude of educators and child psychologists who found either inspiration or grounds for debate in her work. Individuals such as William Kilpatrick engaged with Montessori's concepts, contributing to an expansive conversation concerning educational theory and practical application. Kilpatrick, a prominent figure in progressive education, initially critiqued some aspects of the Montessori method, particularly its perceived rigidity in material use and its limited emphasis on social interaction. This critique, however, spurred further examination and adaptation of Montessori principles within broader educational contexts. Kilpatrick's engagement, although initially critical, ultimately amplify the discussion surrounding child-centered learning and the role of the educator as a facilitator rather than a director. Contemporary Montessori schools maintain their popularity worldwide, a reflection of the lasting attraction of her educational philosophy. The method has also exerted influence on other educational approaches, including constructivism and inquiry-based learning. Constructivist theories, which emphasize the active role of the learner in constructing knowledge, find resonance in Montessori's emphasis on hands-on learning and self-directed exploration. Inquiry-based learning, which encourages students to ask questions, investigate, and discover answers, also aligns with Montessori's focus on fostering curiosity and independent thinking. The Montessori method continues to evolve and adapt to address the requirements of 21st century learners, while upholding its fundamental principles of child-centered instruction and individualized progress. One significant adaptation involves the integration of technology into the Montessori classroom. While Montessori herself did develop electronic learning tools, modern educators are finding innovative ways to incorporate technology in a manner that complements, rather than supplants, the traditional Montessori materials. For example, interactive whiteboards can be utilized to present lessons in a visually engaging manner, while educational apps can provide opportunities for individualized practice and assessment. The key is to ensure that technology is used as a tool to enhance learning, reinforcing Montessori principles of self-direction, exploration, and discovery. Another area of evolution concerns the application of Montessori principles to older learners. Traditionally, Montessori education has focused primarily on early childhood and elementary education. However, educators are increasingly exploring the potential of adapting Montessori principles for middle school and high school students. This involves creating learning environments that foster independence, collaboration, and critical thinking, while providing opportunities for students to pursue their interests and passions. The lasting influence of Montessori is also evident in the growing body of research that supports her educational philosophy. Studies have demonstrated that Montessori education can lead to improved academic outcomes, enhanced social-emotional development, and increased creativity. For example, research has shown that Montessori students tend to score higher on standardized tests, exhibit greater levels of self-regulation, and demonstrate more positive attitudes toward learning. Furthermore, Montessori's emphasis on observation and individualized instruction has had a profound impact on the field of special education. Educators are increasingly using Montessori principles to create inclusive learning environments that cater to the diverse needs of all students. By providing individualized support and adapting materials to meet specific learning styles, Montessori education can help students with disabilities to reach their full potential. Consider, for instance, the application of Montessori principles in teaching mathematics. Montessori materials, such as the golden beads and the decimal system, provide concrete representations of abstract mathematical concepts. These materials allow children to manipulate and explore mathematical ideas in a hands-on manner, fostering a deeper understanding of number sense operations and place value. The use of these materials enables children to progress at their own pace, mastering each concept before moving on to the next. This contrasts sharply with traditional mathematics instruction, which often relies on rote memorization and abstract symbols. In a traditional classroom, children may be presented with a worksheet of addition problems and instructed to memorize the facts. This approach can be frustrating for children who struggle with abstract concepts, and it may lead to a superficial understanding of mathematics. In a Montessori classroom, children are introduced to mathematical concepts through concrete materials and activities. For example, they may use the golden beads to represent numbers and perform addition and subtraction operations. As they manipulate the beads, they develop a tactile and visual understanding of the concepts. They learn to associate the symbols with the concrete representations, making the learning process more meaningful and engaging. Similarly, Montessori's approach to language arts emphasizes hands-on learning and individualized instruction. Montessori materials, such as the sandpaper letters and the movable alphabet, provide opportunities for children to explore the sounds and symbols of language. The sandpaper letters allow children to trace the shapes of the letters, developing a kinesthetic understanding of letter formation. The movable alphabet enables children to construct words and sentences, fostering a deeper understanding of phonics and spelling. This approach contrasts with traditional language arts instruction, which often relies on rote memorization and worksheets. In a traditional classroom, children may be presented with a list of spelling words and instructed to memorize them. This approach can be tedious and ineffective, as children may struggle to retain the information. In a Montessori classroom, children are introduced to language arts concepts through concrete materials and activities. For example, they may use the sandpaper letters to trace the shapes of the letters and learn the corresponding sounds. They may use the movable alphabet to construct words and sentences, experimenting with different combinations of letters. As they engage in these activities, they develop a deeper understanding of the relationship between sounds and symbols, making the learning process more enjoyable and effective. The Montessori method also emphasizes the importance of creating a prepared environment that is conducive to learning. The prepared environment is a carefully designed space that is filled with stimulating materials and activities. The materials are arranged in an orderly manner, and children are given the freedom to choose the activities that interest them. The prepared environment is designed to foster independence, self-direction, and love of learning. Children are encouraged to explore the materials, experiment, and discover new things. The teacher acts as a guide, providing support and assistance as needed. This approach contrasts with traditional classroom settings, which are often teacher-centered and highly structured. In a traditional classroom, the teacher typically directs the activities and controls the flow of information. Children are expected to follow instructions and complete assignments as directed. In a Montessori classroom, children are given more freedom and autonomy. They are encouraged to make choices, pursue their interests, and learn at their own pace. The teacher acts as a facilitator, creating a supportive and stimulating environment that fosters learning and growth. Montessori's enduring legacy lies in her ability to create a system of education that is both effective and engaging. Her method is based on a deep understanding of child development and commitment to providing children with the tools and opportunities they need to reach their full potential. Her emphasis on hands-on learning, individualized instruction, and a prepared environment has had a profound impact on education, and her ideas continue to inspire educators around the world. Her contributions to the understanding of child development and the creation of child-centered learning environments remain invaluable.
We really appreciate you tuning into this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.